Welcome, everybody, to the Successful Events Podcast, your go-to podcast for hosting impactful, purpose-driven events. I'm your host, Kat Roten, an event strategist and logistics expert, here to help you plan and execute events with confidence. You'll hear from top industry experts sharing the latest trends, live coaching calls with myself and fellow community members, and of course, my personal favorite, strategies to help you stay true to your vision without the burnout while you're event planning. But here's the thing, your event isn't just about the details. It's a time to celebrate your hard work, to show up fully in your energy at your event, and to lead with confidence. That's why we focus on self-care, intentionality, and making sure your event aligns with your purpose so it doesn't just look good, but it also feels good for you too. Let's simplify the process and make it unforgettable. Hello, everyone. We are so excited today. Today is a collab, actually, podcast episode, and this is going to be airing on two different podcasts, and we're sharing it. But today I have the honor of being on here with Taylor Smith, and then I am Kat Roten, if you don't know who I am, if you're listening in on Taylor's podcast. But today we're excited because I've actually been supporting Taylor on putting on an incredible event. And I think that's a perfect lead way into what I do, which I'm an event strategist and planner. So my business is Impactful Event Co. I also have some other new legs that have come across the way the last really 6-8 weeks. But I'm excited today because we're going to dive into what it is about to get into the room and how that's impacted Taylor and I in our businesses and our lives, and just kind of change the way, including why she's created the room she has. But Taylor, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can kind of do a little introduction of yourself as well.
Thank you. I am Taylor Smith. If you don't know, if you're listening to Kat's podcast, or you just found us randomly on Apple or Spotify, which sometimes that's how I find really great podcasts. I am the founder of the Power Table. We are a conference and community for female founders who are growing their businesses online. And we have our annual conference coming up called the Power Table Live, April 23rd and 24th. So if you're listening to this in real time, it is mid-March. And so this is coming up. We're about 7 weeks out. And the conference is really something I created as a result of a community need of wanting to meet with more people in person, wanting to bring more people in person who had connected with me online, and creating the thing that I couldn't find. So I know we're going to get into that in the episode, but basically if you are a woman who grows her business online, your clients find you online, then this is the place for you. And I'm so excited to get into this.
I know I am as well, because I think this was a topic we had talked about and really is pertinent, I think, with everything that's we've experienced, and that with this coming up is just perfect. So to kind of start off with, I know that we have some questions that we're going through. The first one I really want to touch on, though, is, and I think I have struggled with this and recently really gotten to a point that I'm more comfortable and intentional when I attend events. But I think there's many people that just don't know what's the right room for them. So Taylor, I'll let you start first. Kind of what's your perspective of how does somebody find the right room for themselves?
Yes. So when I first started going to events, I definitely kind of approached it with where does it look like everyone's hanging out without me? I had so much FOMO, and I know you and I have talked about that in the beginning. It was what looks cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then very quickly realize oh, that might not be the best business strategy in the world. So then I started thinking along the lines of what is my goal? So with every event that I go to, how I evaluate, is this the right room for me or not? I start with a goal before I even look at an event. And my goals are, maybe this is tied to a quarterly goal you have or an annual goal. So for conferences, I go with either I'm looking for specific connections. So specific people or specific experts I want to connect with. So if you're looking for podcast guests or speakers for your own event, if you're listening to Kat's podcast because you're also an event host, do you need to get in person to meet those people? So you can find an event where they're going to be. And then the second one might be education. Are you wanting to go and learn specific topics? And the best place to get what's working right now is in person, especially for marketing, AI. Things are changing really, really quickly. If you want to know what top experts are doing in their business, you're not going to get it from their 7-second Instagram reels. You're going to get it from what they're teaching in person. And then the third one is a little bit broader, but are you just looking for connection? more friends, more community, more people. You just want to get out of your bubble. And so you go into an event not with an expectation of, I'm going to learn this incredible strategy, but more, I just want to go and connect with other people. And any of those goals or a combination of those is how I approach a room now and decide if that's right for me.
I have to agree with all of those. I mean, I think that's literally what I have started going through. But I can agree, when I started this process of getting in the rooms and attending events, I just was going where everyone else was going and the people I knew. And I'll be honest, it was incredible. It's how I met you and some other incredible women that are in my life. And I spent a lot of money in a lot of places I probably didn't need to be spending that money. And so I think it comes into thinking about the money, but then it's also, where's your time and energy going? Because as you get deeper and deeper and attend more events, you're going to meet so many people that have incredible events and incredible speakers and are talking on all these topics. But I love what you hit on. It's, what are your goals for this quarter, this year, and what's going to pour into you? The other thing I also want you to consider is the travel time. I don't think people always consider the cost of traveling, the time of traveling, the energy it takes. I have actually, and I think you have, Taylor, too, started connecting and networking more in my local community. And like this morning of recording this episode, I went 30, 45 minutes down the road. And to me, that was so much worth it to start connecting locally and realizing that there's opportunities probably just around you too. If you're not quite ready to jump on a plane or get in a 6-hour car ride to go somewhere, but there's opportunities everywhere. It's just finding, what are your intentions? What's the goal when you get in the room? Is it connections? Is it community? Is it to learn and get more knowledge? And then coming back to, what is it for this year you're going to do? So I think I can agree 100% with all of that. So then my next question that I want us to touch on is, what if the room doesn't exist that somebody is looking for? And I think that can happen sometimes too, especially if they're looking more in, let's say, their local area or within driving distance. Sometimes people don't find the right event for them. What I think your expertise and your experience, I think, speaks volumes for this. So Taylor, I'm gonna let you touch on this also again first, because I love what you've done. And I think you are a perfect example of what you can do.
Yeah, I love what you were just saying about, like, this morning you went to a local event, and just yesterday I hosted a coffee and content that I didn't need to do. I just wanted to. And it's because, don't underestimate the value of local events and local connection. But I'm going to be honest, brunch and bubblies and chambers and BNI, that's probably not, it's not my vibe. I know it's great for some people, but I'm not going to get anyone who's building an online business, building a 6 or 7 figure online company in those groups. I'm just not. And so if you're like, I hear you, I want to be local, I don't know how to find these people, or it doesn't exist here. My challenge would be, okay, then what does it take for you to become the person to create it? And that's really how I ended up with a conference and hosting in-person events, is because I had built this big business online and multiple companies, and I was so alone. I was just in my office every single day, completely alone. And the only time that I got poured back into was when I traveled out of state. Like you were just saying, 6-hour drive, 2 days flying somewhere. The only time I was getting anything back and getting those connections was when I was traveling away for conferences and events. And so then I tried going to every little local thing I could find. And because I was crying to my husband, I'm so alone. And then oldest daughter energy was like, you have to do something about this. So I go to every event that I can possibly find for 2 straight years. And I met a lot of nice people, but I still never found what I was looking for that I was going out of state to. And that was these high impact events for women who were very goal driven and move very, very quickly in their business. They don't need fluff. They're not here for brunch and mimosas. I mean, we like mimosas, but we're not focused on that.
I want more. I'm ready to move.
This could be our new brand slogan: more than mimosas. So then after 2 years of not finding it, I was like, oh, Taylor, I guess you have to create it. And probably I should have arrived at that faster. But sometimes, we avoid no, the answer we know is so obvious to us. So I finally created it, and I started hosting in-person, local entrepreneur meetups. And we hosted our first conference last year. And I thought, if 20 women come, I will be happy. I'll know that other people want this too. And we sold out, which you know, because you were there, at 75 women. And it made me realize that I wasn't the only one who needed this, but someone had to go first. Someone had to create it. And so I would say if the room you're looking for, especially locally, doesn't exist, there is a gap in the market and potentially you could be the one to fill it.
Yeah. And I think this is perfect segue for me to kind of talk about also the building phase. And you
Yeah.
went through this last year too. And there's so much depth. And if you're listening to this on my podcast, or even if you're on Taylor's, like I have many episodes that dive into more, because it's not just saying, all right, done, we're going to go and host an event and you're going to throw everything together. Because what you're wanting to create, if you are really looking for the right room and it doesn't exist, is going to be more than just a simple networking event or happy hour. It requires creating a budget. It requires finding partners and collaborations and sponsors. It requires you getting catering, finding the right venue. There's a lot of other details that go into place. And I don't say this to overwhelm you if you're listening to this saying, oh crap, well, now I wanted to host an event, but that sounds like way too much work. It doesn't have to be. You just have to have the right people and the right, honestly, message, like your core why when it comes to what you are creating, you need to express and show. Still show up in those local networking, still show up on your social media, on your email list, and share why are you creating the room, because you're going to attract the right people then to also come. They're coming for you. Yes, they want good food, and yes, they want a beautiful venue, but ultimately they're coming for you and what you're creating in the community that you're bringing together. So just remember that it's not just an easy, like, let's throw it together, done. Like, you are creating an intentional event for a reason.
We're 4 months into planning my event. Like we've been working on this and planning for 4 months. Like it's definitely not something, if you already feel maxed out in your capacity, this might not be the time to create a room. And like Kat saying, there's so much that goes into it, not just like the planning, but then also like messaging, making sure like, are you attracting the right people? And if it is a more advanced room, then you need to make sure that you deliver on that and that you invite people and curate through your messaging a group of people that are all on a relatively similar level, the level of people that you want to attract. And that could be new business owners, like, or new people to your niche. Like, it doesn't have to be someone advanced, but like, make sure that you really pay close attention to all of these pieces in order for it to be successful. I will say that nothing that I've done when it comes to events has been without that kind of like deep advanced planning.
Yeah. Well, and I like to now kind of compare it to business. Like when you're putting on an event, you still have to have like your attendee avatar. Your ideal attendee has to be something that you are very clear on, because then your messaging is clear to market to the right people, kind of like just what you were saying. Many things cross over. I have definitely learned more and more, I feel like, the last few years in business and with your event, especially if the event is an extension of like you and your business that you have, like, because you're probably putting it on because you're going to ultimately funnel it back in some way to your business. Now I want to kind of pivot and go down a slightly different path. It's a little similar, but slightly different, on also for people who maybe they found that room. So they're not going to create it, but they've found the room that's right for them. But then as they're approaching, and I'll personally say I had this feeling multiple times the first probably year that I was attending events, is like, oh my gosh, everyone's way far ahead of me. Why am I going to this, like being in this room? How do I talk to people? How do I actually have conversations? Because I'm nowhere close to where they are. And honestly, I know, and it's what I've had to go through, is a complete mindset shift that has to happen. But Taylor, I'd love for you to share a little bit about what's your experience been like when you've put yourself in those rooms where people of higher caliber and making those 7-8 figures are there.
It's such a good question. And I think that it's one of those instances where we think other people are thinking about us way more than they actually are. Like we're convinced we will go into a room that's more advanced and people are going to see fraud written right all over your face. Or like, I don't belong here. And no one thinks that. Like that's been my experience, right? You get so anxious because you want to make a good impression and you want to make connections, but you also don't feel ready. And I will tell you that you will never at any point feel ready the first time that you do something, or the first time it's a little bit more expensive of a ticket or a little bit more advanced or further away from you. It's always going to feel that every single time. And then when you get in a room, what I love about business conferences specifically is that the more advanced people you get around, 6, 7, 8-figure earners, the less judgment there is. And the more that they actually are like, I'm so happy you're here.
Mhm.
I'm so happy you're here. I'm so happy that you're doing this now because it took me too long to put myself in this room. That's how I feel when I have entrepreneurs who are like, 22 and they're day one of their business and they're investing, they're spending $500, $1,000 to be in my room. I'm like, wow, imagine where I would have been if I had started there.
Yeah.
So I think know that that feeling is very normal and know that everyone is going to welcome you for just being there in the first place. They're there to make connections. They're not there to find little clicks and not talk to anyone else.
Well, and I think you hit it perfectly too, is like they have embodied who they are and their authenticity. And like they're so in their truth when they're coming in the room that they don't look at you and judge you because they know who they are no matter what is said, no matter what is done, and all the things. And I think that's what it's not easy. And I think this is a challenge. I know personally for me, I've gone on a long, long journey of like embodying my value and my worthiness to be in the rooms. And it truly is sitting with and trusting that you're there for a reason and that no matter where you are and what stage you're in a business, you have value to bring to the table because your experience prior is going to be different than anyone else's. And you probably have a different perspective that they would have never considered. And that was the biggest thing that I always have to remind myself, especially that first year, was like, I have value to bring. Like I've worked a decade in hospitality and hotels. I probably know something that they don't know that they need to know. And it could be the smallest thing though, too, even from your life. So don't let it hold you back. And I challenge you to actually have that little bit of discomfort of putting yourself in the room of those more high caliber entrepreneurs and business owners, or even spend that little like money that's a little stretch, because when you do that, you also show up differently in those rooms too.
Oh, I love that. Something someone else said to me earlier. Um, we were on an Instagram live earlier today. Her name is Steph Rubio. She's an incredible business coach, and it means so much to me that she bought her ticket today to the Power Table. And she said, for those of you who aren't sure if you belong in the room, you belong when you buy the ticket. Like once you make that purchase, you already decided you are worthy in that moment, decided you belong. So like, just so you know, like you don't have to qualify yourself once you're there. The second you buy the ticket, you already belong.
I love that. I'm going to like keep that in my back pocket for later. That's a good one I haven't heard. So that's amazing. Okay. So Taylor, I want you to share a little bit more about the conference, because by the time this episode comes out, we're sitting around 45 days, not even. I think we're under that mark now. What has been the hardest thing about the process so far? And yet also what's been the most exciting thing?
Ooh, there's so many details to hold. So I will say that's the hardest part is
Yeah.
I don't mind planning. I don't get overwhelmed, and that's because you and I both come from like a background of like running and coordinating a lot of events. So like you tell me there's like 19 different sponsors, doesn't bother me. Like all these moving parts, I'm good with that. It's more like knowing that I really want to do the best job possible. And that's exciting and also really hard to hold that space and like mentally know, how do I over deliver for 100 women that I want all of them to succeed. And so like, how do I make sure that they get to network? The right people are there. I obviously would love for everyone to come, but ticket prices are what they are so that the right people are there. And so the people who come are serious. I don't want people there who are just there for something fun to do. That devalues it for the women who want to grow their business. So you just knowing, I think it feels like a big bubble in my brain that's exciting and beautiful, but also really uncomfortable of knowing who it's for and staying so committed to that I'm like not getting distracted, I think,
Yeah.
by other things. And I don't know if that's what you were exactly asking, but like it just like anything in business, you have to commit to it. Like you can't get distracted. You can't change when things are hard. Like you can't constantly second guess yourself. Like you just have to stay committed and do it.
No, I appreciate the honesty though, and like vulnerability there, because I think you and I've had one other person that's in the community come to me in the last few weeks, and you guys have had panic moments of like, oh my gosh, no one's buying a ticket. And it's just coming back to knowing like you made this commitment. You said you were going to do this and you have that core why. And there's a whole reasoning behind that. So thank you. Because I was just so curious and I thought the listeners would want to hear that as well. I'm so excited for you. Is there anything else that you want to like talk about or mention?
If you listen to this and we passed your vibe check and you felt like you are going to get in more rooms this year, if that's your goal with your business, is to stop doing things alone, get on the ground strategies of what's working now, make connections with women who are serious. They're not messing around with their business. They're not one toe in the pool. They're all in. This is your invitation to the Power Table Live. We have space. We want you at our table. And I promise you will not go to another conference that has the speaker lineup we have, that has the intentionality that we have behind this event. There are so many hundreds of hours at this point of going into making sure this is the premier conference for women in business this year. And I'm so excited and I cannot wait to see all of you there.
I'm so excited for you. I feel like it's been longer than just 3-4 months that we've been working on this. I think we've been talking about it for longer is why, but I can't wait to support you in this and to have be a part of actually making it happen, like the magic happen and seeing it come to life. So if you are interested, it's April 23rd and 24th. It's going to be in 30A, Florida, which is beautiful, gorgeous.
Literally area. The most beautiful place you could go to a conference. Let's be honest, this is the tax write-off you want. It is on the world's most beautiful beaches, and it's going to be phenomenal.
Yes, it's going to be great. If you're interested, also, her event, along with others, are on my preferred events calendar. It's a free resource that I have. I will put it in my show notes, at least on mine. And Taylor, I can share it with you to share too. But that way, if you're looking at her event, it's on there and other ones too. So you can really get intentional and find that right room that you are looking for your business and honestly just for your life in general to make the most of this year. So Taylor, thank you so much for recording this with me.
Of course.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you're tired of searching for the right events to attend, I've got something special for you. I've created the Preferred Events Calendar. It's your exclusive time-saving guide to personal and professional development events, industry opportunities, and top networking experiences across the entire U.S. No more guessing where to show up or missing out on some key connections that maybe you don't know about. Get the calendar through the link below in the show notes and start finding the events that align with your goals for this year. And if you are hosting your own event, you can even add it to the calendar too. Shoot me a DM through Instagram. That way, if you're interested, I can send over the information. I'll see you next time.